Your peace is your responsibility, not a gift, not a luxury, not something someone else hands to you when they feel like being kind. It's something you guard, something you choose, something you defend even when people don't understand why. Because the truth is, most people won't understand it. They won't get why you're not available the way you used to be. They won't get why you're saying no to the things you always said yes to. They won't get why you're calmer now, quieter now, more intentional now. And that's fine. They don't have to. Your peace wasn't built for their comfort. It's built for your survival. Every woman reaches a point where she realizes she's tired of chaos, tired of constantly fixing everything, tired of being the emotional shock absorber for people who never consider the weight she's carrying. So she chooses peace, and that choice changes everything. It changes how she talks. It changes how she reacts. It changes what she allows. Because when peace becomes your priority, the whole world looks different. You stop taking things personally. You stop feeling the need to defend yourself. You stop explaining your worth to people who only listen when it benefits them. You rise above it because you finally understand that not every battle is worth your energy. When you take responsibility for your peace, you start protecting your time like it's gold. You stop letting people dump their problems on you just because you're strong enough to carry them. You set boundaries that feel uncomfortable at first because you're not used to choosing yourself. You're not used to saying no without guilt. You're not used to walking away from drama instead of trying to fix it. But the more you practice, the more you realize that peace isn't found in controlling everything around you. It's found in controlling how you respond to everything around you. And the real test is this: can you stay at peace when someone tries to pull you back into the version of yourself you outgrew? Can you stay calm when someone tries to provoke you just to get a reaction? Can you walk away when someone wants an argument, but you want growth? That's where peace becomes power. Not loud power, not aggressive power, quiet power. The kind of power that doesn't need to prove anything because it's rooted in clarity. Clarity about who you are. Clarity about what matters. Clarity about what deserves your heart and what doesn't. There will always be people who misunderstand your peace as weakness. They think silence means you're scared. They think not reacting means you don't care. They think walking away means they won. But that's because they measure strength by how loud someone can get. You measure strength by how much self-control you can keep. And there's a difference, a big one. Anyone can react, anyone can yell, anyone can argue, but very few can stay grounded, very few can stay centered. Very few can hold their peace when the world is trying to pull it out of their hands. That's real strength. Peace also teaches you to choose your battles wisely. Not every comment needs a comeback. Not every insult needs a reaction. Not every situation needs your energy. Because once you learn the cost of peace, you stop spending it cheaply. You stop giving it away to people who don't appreciate it. You stop letting people drain you with their inconsistency, their drama, their chaos. You start stepping back. You start observing instead of absorbing. You start realizing that some people aren't meant to be fixed. They're meant to be released. And the most powerful shift happens inside you. You begin to notice the things you used to allow without thinking. You begin to recognize how much you tolerated just to keep the peace with others while sacrificing the peace within yourself. You begin to see that you were over-explaining, over-giving, over-caring. And for what? To maintain relationships that didn't respect you, to keep people close who only drained you, to avoid being labeled difficult or cold. When you take responsibility for your peace, you stop negotiating your worth for the comfort of others. Your peace also forces you to become honest with yourself. You start asking harder questions. Why do certain things trigger me? Why do I keep letting this person back into my life? Why am I carrying stress that doesn't belong to me? Why do I stay silent when something hurts me? Peace requires awareness. It requires self-reflection. It requires you to see your patterns and break them. And breaking them isn't easy. It takes courage to let go of habits that kept you surviving but never allowed you to grow. It takes courage to admit that you played a part in your own exhaustion by giving too much and demanding too little. And then comes the second stage, rebuilding. When your life becomes quieter, you finally hear yourself. You hear your needs, you hear your intuition, you hear that small voice that was always drowned out by noise. And when you start listening to yourself, everything changes. You start moving differently. You start choosing differently. You start loving differently. You stop chasing people who don't see your value. You stop apologizing for taking time for yourself. You stop carrying guilt for protecting your heart. Because peace gives you perspective. Perspective about who belongs in your life and who doesn't. Perspective about what truly matters. Perspective about what you need to feel whole. People will say you've changed. And they're right. You did. You stopped letting your emotions be controlled by others. You stopped letting your mind be a playground for stress and anxiety. You stopped allowing people to drag you into their storms. And maybe they don't like this version of you because it's harder to manipulate, harder to guilt trip, harder to take advantage of. But that's not your problem. Your responsibility is your peace. Your responsibility is your mental space. Your responsibility is the emotional environment you choose to live in every day. And a peaceful woman is a powerful woman, not because she's closed off, but because she's selective. Not because she's cold, but because she's wise. Not because she's emotionless, but because she knows what's worth her emotions. Peace doesn't make you weaker. It makes you unshakable. It makes you grounded. It makes you the kind of woman who doesn't break under pressure because she built her strength from within, not from what others gave her. And when you finally understand that your peace is your responsibility, you stop waiting for others to change. You change yourself. You change the room by changing your presence. You change your life by changing what you allow. Because your peace is not a reaction. It's a decision, a daily one, a strong one, a life-changing one. Stop shrinking to make others comfortable. This is one of the hardest lessons a woman ever learns, not because she's weak, but because she's been trained her entire life to play small. To be polite, to be agreeable, to be the one who adjusts, who accommodates, who bends so others don't feel insecure in her presence. And for years, you might not even realize you're doing it. You laugh quieter. You dream smaller. You choose safer. You hide the things that make you shine because someone once made you feel like shining was selfish. But there comes a moment when you look at your life and realize you've been living inside a version of yourself that doesn't fit anymore. And that moment becomes the turning point. You stop shrinking when you understand that your light was never the problem. Other people's discomfort was. Their insecurity, their jealousy, their fear that your growth would expose their stagnation. And instead of letting that intimidate you, you finally see it for what it is. Proof that you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to stand out. You were meant to take up space. You were meant to be fully expressed, fully alive, fully honest about who you are and what you want. Because shrinking doesn't protect you. It just suffocates you quietly. Every time you minimized your achievements so someone else wouldn't feel threatened. You shrank. Every time you accepted disrespect because you didn't want to be labeled dramatic, you shrank. Every time you silenced your ideas in a room where you knew you could add value, you shrank. This isn't weakness, it's conditioning. A lifetime of being told to make yourself smaller so others could feel bigger. But at some point you have to ask, what is the cost of constantly shrinking? What parts of you have you lost by trying to stay digestible for people who were never meant to shape your identity? And here's the truth most people won't tell you. When you stop shrinking, people will react. Some won't like the new version of you. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you're doing something different. You're not bending anymore. You're not explaining yourself anymore. You're not dimming your personality just to be accepted. And the people who benefited from your silence, your softness, your self-sacrifice will suddenly feel uncomfortable. That's not your burden to carry anymore. You don't owe anyone a smaller version of yourself. You don't owe them the convenience of your silence. You don't owe them the comfort of your limitations. You owe yourself the freedom to exist fully. Because when you shrink, you don't just hide your strengths. You hide your potential, you hide your voice, you hide your ambition, you hide the parts of you that could change your life, maybe even change someone else's. And the loss is bigger than you realize. Stop shrinking means you finally start speaking up, not to argue, not to prove anything, but to stand in your truth. You start trusting your voice even when it shakes. You start taking opportunities even when they scare you. You start showing the parts of you that you kept hidden because someone once called them too much, too loud, too emotional, too independent, too confident, too ambitious. The word "too" is a weapon used by people who are intimidated by women who know who they are. Never forget that. When you stop shrinking, you also stop apologizing for things that don't need apologies. You stop saying sorry for having boundaries. You stop saying sorry for needing rest. You stop saying sorry for not being available every second. You stop saying sorry for wanting more love, more respect, more growth, more opportunity. Apologizing for your needs teaches people that your needs don't matter. Taking up space teaches them that they do, and taking up space isn't about being loud, it's about being present, being grounded, being unafraid to show your intelligence, your creativity, your personality. It's walking into a room and not questioning whether you belong there. It's allowing yourself to dream without shrinking your vision to match what others think is realistic. It's believing you can be powerful without being unlikable, even if others try to convince you otherwise. Too many women shrink their personalities to avoid judgment. But the truth is, people judge you whether you shrink or not. So why not be judged for being real? Your presence is not a threat, but your lack of presence is a loss. A loss of your voice, a loss of your identity, a loss of your purpose. And once you understand the cost of making yourself small, you start reclaiming every inch you lost. You start showing up differently. You start walking with your head higher. You start speaking with more authority. You start embracing the things that make you different instead of hiding them. And you'll notice something powerful the moment you stop shrinking. Your world expands. You attract opportunities that weren't visible before. You meet people who respect your boundaries instead of pushing them. You find relationships that value your strength instead of fearing it. You uncover dreams you didn't know you had because you were too busy dimming yourself to fit into someone else's comfort zone. Taking up space doesn't create conflict. It creates clarity. Clarity about who belongs in your life and who only belonged in the chapters where you didn't know your power. Stop shrinking also means stop pretending. Pretending you're fine when you're hurting. Pretending you're okay with things that break your spirit. Pretending you don't have opinions, desires, boundaries, or standards. Pretending keeps the peace for everyone except you. And that's not real peace. That's emotional silence. The moment you stop pretending, you start healing. You start honoring your feelings. You start living a life that actually fits you instead of one you squeezed yourself into. Some people will call the new you selfish. Let them. If choosing yourself feels like selfishness to someone, it's because they benefited from a version of you that didn't choose yourself at all. You're not selfish. You're self-respecting. You're self-aware. You're self-protecting. And those qualities are not weaknesses. They're signs of a woman who finally recognizes her worth. When you stop shrinking, you become magnetic. And not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because authenticity is attractive, confidence is attractive, clarity is attractive. People are drawn to women who stand in their truth without fear. And the ones who aren't drawn to you, they were never meant to stay anyway. Their departure is not a loss, it's alignment. Stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Let them adjust. Let them grow. Let them rise to meet the version of you who is no longer afraid to be seen. You weren't put here to blend in. You weren't created to be unnoticed. You weren't meant to live a life that feels smaller than your soul. So take up space. Take up your space. The world needs the full version of you, not the reduced one. A woman becomes unstoppable the day she stops needing permission for the life she wants. And this isn't about arrogance, rebellion, or doing things to prove a point. This is about finally realizing that your life is yours. Your choices are yours. Your dreams are yours. And no one has the authority to approve or deny the things that pull at your spirit. For too long, women have been taught to wait. Wait for validation. Wait for support. Wait for the right time. Wait for someone to say, go ahead. But waiting has stolen more dreams than failure ever has. Waiting has silenced more voices than fear ever did. And waiting has convinced too many women that what they want is optional. But you're not optional. Your purpose isn't optional. Your happiness isn't optional. Becoming unstoppable has nothing to do with having everything figured out. It has everything to do with deciding that you're done letting other people dictate your capacity, that you're done shrinking your dreams to fit someone else's comfort zone, that you're done asking for permission to become the version of yourself you've always known you could be. Because the truth is, you already know what you want. You already know what excites you, what scares you, what challenges you, what calls to you. You don't need anyone to sign off on that. You need courage, not approval. And courage doesn't show up fully formed. Courage shows up as a whisper at first. A quiet voice that says, try, start, move, begin. And most women ignore that voice because they're waiting for something louder, something external, a sign, a message, a push. But the most powerful decisions you will ever make come from the quietest places inside you. That is where your unstoppable self lives. She is not loud. She is not dramatic. She is determined. And when you finally listen to her, something shifts. You stop needing the world to understand your choices. You stop explaining why you want what you want. You stop defending your goals to people who don't share your vision. You stop seeking approval from people who wouldn't dare chase their own dreams. And once you stop seeking permission, you start living, really living. You take risks you used to fear. You walk into rooms you once felt unworthy of. You pursue opportunities that once felt out of reach, not because they magically got easier, but because you stopped waiting for someone to guarantee the outcome. A woman becomes unstoppable when she realizes no one is coming to save her from her own hesitation. No one is coming to hand her confidence. No one is coming to push her into her purpose. She has to do that herself. And that's where her strength multiplies, because when a woman starts choosing herself consistently and unapologetically, she becomes a force, a quiet storm, a steady flame, a presence that commands respect without demanding it. People may not understand her choices, but they feel her certainty, and certainty is magnetic. Being unstoppable doesn't mean you never feel scared. It means you move even when you are. It means you trust the path even when you can't see the whole road. It means you stop letting fear be the loudest voice in the room. Fear will always show up. Doubt will always whisper. Obstacles will always appear. But unstoppable women don't wait for perfect conditions. They build out of imperfect ones. They rise in the middle of uncertainty. They create momentum when everyone else is standing still. And you know what makes a woman truly unstoppable? She stops asking for permission emotionally. She stops waiting for someone to approve her boundaries. She stops waiting for someone to validate her worth. She stops waiting for someone to tell her she deserves better. She gives herself permission to walk away from what drains her. Permission to demand respect. Permission to pursue joy even if it disrupts old patterns. Permission to reinvent herself even if others aren't ready for the new version. Permission to say, this is not enough for me anymore. Once she grants herself that freedom, she becomes a different woman. She becomes selective with her time, intentional with her energy, protective of her circle, focused on her growth. And that focus intimidates people who knew her as the woman who used to settle, the woman who used to stay quiet, the woman who used to tolerate more than she should. But her evolution isn't meant to make others comfortable. It's meant to make her whole. When you stop asking for permission, you also stop explaining your healing. People may ask why you're distant, why you've changed, why you're no longer available the way you used to be. They don't understand that healing changes your priorities. Growing changes your capacity. Becoming unstoppable changes your perspective. You no longer view your dreams through the lens of, do people approve of this? You view them through the lens of, does this align with my purpose? That shift alone will change your entire life. And one of the hardest parts is this: you will outgrow environments that once felt comfortable. You will realize that some relationships only made sense when you doubted yourself. You will see that some friendships survived because you kept yourself small. You will notice that certain people only supported you as long as you didn't outgrow them. But when you stop needing permission, you stop living for them. You stop adjusting to make them feel secure. You stop dimming your strength for their approval. You don't become unkind. You become unavailable to anything that doesn't match your new standard. Unstoppable women also understand that failure is not a sign to quit. It's a sign to refine. When you're no longer seeking permission, failure stops feeling like embarrassment and starts feeling like information. It becomes part of the process, not the end of it. You learn, you adjust, you grow, you keep going. That's what separates unstoppable women from everyone else. They don't collapse after setbacks. They rise through them. And here's something powerful: when a woman stops needing permission, she becomes a leader without trying to be one. People watch her strength. They watch her decisions. They watch her courage. She inspires without forcing anything, because there is nothing more inspiring than a woman who trusts herself deeply, a woman who listens to her intuition, a woman who knows she deserves a life filled with purpose, joy, respect, and fulfillment. A woman who refuses to apologize for wanting more. You become unstoppable the moment you realize your life is not up for negotiation. Your dreams are not up for debate. Your worth is not up for discussion. You don't need a committee to approve your future. You don't need applause to validate your direction. You don't need permission to build the life that calls you. You only need one thing: a decision. A decision to choose yourself. A decision to trust yourself. A decision to stop waiting. A decision to start living the way you were always meant to.